It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hibb.
It's happened. The next generation of retirees are starting to hit that first major retirement milestone. Now keep calm and carry on, Generation X. Time for more wit and wisdom on Watts on Wealth with our main retirement designer from the Wealthcare Corporation of Springfield, Barry Watts. Barry and I are back on KY3 with our TV show next Sunday now that the Olympics are over. We'd been preempted during that time. Gosh, Barry, they had the Olympics morning, noon, and night. But glad to have you join us on the radio this Sunday. Barry, how are you and how was your financial week?
Well, I'm doing really fine, Ralph. All is positive in my world. It's a beautiful time in the Ozarks. The weather's gotten a little cooler for us, although it warmed back up some this week. And so I'm just fabulous is what I would say.
Well, and I forgot to mention today, this Sunday is the big day. Barry is 61. Happy birthday, Barry.
Well, thank you, Ralph. Yeah. I appreciate it. I am 61 today, in fact, and never thought I'd get to be this old and woke up and here I am.
There you go. Now, I swear in the time we've been together, you had your 60th birthday 6 months ago. I mean, the time is getting away from me. But
that's the way it happens when you get to be our age. You know, they start piling up really fast. It's a downhill slide from here to the end.
That going down the mountain we talk about, it's kind of happening. Yep. Before we get to people who are Gen Xers, you are 9 years away from retirement. Anybody who's 9 years away from retirement, what should they be thinking about right now, Barry?
Well, Ralph, the reason you say I'm 9 years away from retirement is because you've heard me say that I intend to work until 70.
Yes.
And what we'll do at 70 is we'll look at it again and make a decision from there. But I just got a report, in fact, from my physician that essentially I went and had an executive medicine. I went to one of these executive medicine programs that they charge you a lot of money, and you spend a half a day in the little tube getting the MRI done. And it's more than just like an MRI on a joint or something. They do your whole body and they slice every organ and everything. And they can tell you about my brain and all sorts of things. And what they came back with when they came back with the results about a week later is they said, Barry, you're going to live a lot longer than you think you're going to. Well, okay, so that's good news. And it really was good news. So I was really pleased to hear that. And I plan to work until 70. I'm trying to work differently and do just more of the fun things. And I've got a good team of associate advisors to help with the caseload so it doesn't all ride on me anymore. At some point, I'll have to quit. I'm not going to be here forever, but 9 years is certainly a long time off. And what I want to do is just go on the senior tour sort of and come into the office and bother people and just meet with the people that it's fun to meet with. The last client I met with this past week, we just sat and talked for so long. And when we had to leave, we both were kind of sad because we just enjoy talking just about things. So maybe I can do more of that when I'm past 70 and not have to be so sharp with the pencil figuring things out. What should people be thinking about? Well, if you got 9 years to go, I think that's a good time to start saying, when is the end? When do you plan to retire? And based on the data you've got today, are you going to be able to retire? And of course, that's the work we help people figure out. So if you've got 9 years to go, it's a perfect time to actually do your first retirement income plan, a pro forma, and say, here's kind of what it looks like. Are we on the right glide path? So in 9 years, we can actually land this plane. And the good news is, if you've got 9 years before that happens, well, that's a lot of time to adjust in case we need to put a little more gas on it, or in case we need to counter some other winds or something like that. If you're 9 years out, you are ahead of the game compared to most people in terms of doing your planning. I salute you. And let's actually get the first plan done for you and see what it looks like.
So if you've got 9 years with Barry, folks, I would jump on it, not wait 9 years. And his number is 417-200-3500 at the Wealthcare Corporation, 417-200-3500 in Springfield. Barry's going to help you navigate those crucial final years of your career. And if 2025 is close to your retirement deadline, retirement no longer all that far away for Gen X. The earliest Gen Xers hit their first retirement milestone over the summertime, Barry, and thought about a half birthday probably for the first time in their adult lives. There's that 6 months again. You also have your half birthday and your regular birthday. Gen Xers, tell us about the people in that age bracket, Barry.
Well, you're a Gen Xer if you were born between 1965 and 1980. And the earliest of those, born in 65, are now beginning to hit their first major retirement milestone, which is turning 59 and a half. They're doing that this summer, in fact. And you don't necessarily have to retire, of course, at 59 and a half. We just call it a milestone because at 59 and a half, you are allowed to start withdrawing money penalty-free from your tax-deferred retirement accounts. So that's why we consider that age a milestone. And the oldest Gen Xers hit that just this summer, a couple of months ago.
So, yes, the Gen Xers hitting that age where they can begin to start taking money out of their retirement accounts. Should they be doing that?
Well, every Gen Xer is going to be different, but the answer is probably not, because probably at 59 and a half, most folks don't have their retirement all in order. They may be close. They may be on a good glide path. But most people are built to not be able to fully retire and start spending out of their retirement till somewhere between 65 and 70 years old. So just because you turn 59, don't take the money out. And I've got another thing you shouldn't do, Ralph. Sometimes people come to me and they say, man, I've got $500,000 in my 401k and I still owe $50,000 on my house. I just want to take some money out of my 401k and pay off my house. No, stop. Don't do that. At least don't do it until we talk. I had a client this week. In fact, he was in the office on his 60th birthday this week. So he's a year younger than me. He came in and he said, Barry, we still owe $40,000 on our house, and we'd just like to get that paid off and be done. I said, okay, I understand. What interest rate are you at? He said 2.8%. I'm like, dude, you can't pay off a 2.8% loan. Look at your account. Your account, in his case, was earning over double digits. They don't all do that, of course. You can't count on that, but his was doing really, 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 really well. Why would you take money that is performing well for you and pay off a note that has almost no interest being charged, 2.8%?
Exactly.
And I'll tell you, well, so mathematically, there's no reason to do it. Now, let me help you a little bit more with that. You see, when people ask that question, there's two issues. One is the logic issue. The logic issue is mathematical. You would never pay off a 2.8% loan with money that's earning 10%. I mean, you just wouldn't do that. It doesn't make sense logically. But there's the emotional side of it. And this guy, by the way, was born down in Stone County. So he was a homeboy to me. I didn't know him growing up, but he comes from my part of the world. So he and I understand each other really well. And the fact is, there's a certain rule and protocol from where we grew up that says, first thing you do is pay off your house. And so he was wanting to live by that rule and protocol. And I get it. I totally get it. But that's an emotional thing. So there's the logical side and there's the emotional side. And you just have to decide which side wins.
417-200-3500. Call today or text the word visit to that number, or call him first thing Monday morning. Get with Barry, and he'll talk over some great strategy with you. We talked about 59 and a half for you Gen Xers. You can make your withdrawals penalty free, but the withdrawals are not totally free. And Barry, talk about that part of it.
Well, when you turn 59 and a half, you're allowed to take money out of your IRA with no penalties. Before 59 and a half, you have a penalty on top of the taxes that you owe. And when you turn 59 and a half, you no longer have that penalty. You just have to pay the taxes if you've got money in a tax deferred account like a traditional IRA or a 401k. So always bear in mind that to pull money out of those accounts, you have to pay taxes. And that's another reason that it's a bad idea to take 401k money to pay off your last house payments, is because, if you owe $40,000, well, you're going to have to take out $60,000, pay the taxes, and then you'll have $40,000 left. And for many people, that might mean that their income to age 100 would be shorted by 5 to 10 years. And so don't risk that, particularly if you got a 2.8% loan. Keep the mortgage would be my guidance and advice. But the big message is, remember, you have to pay taxes on that money when it comes out of your account. And if you take out large sums, sometimes people get all excited. They say, I just want to take it all out. Sometimes people make mistakes and they don't know what they're doing. And so they just retire and they talk to the HR department and they say, yeah, I just want to take all my retirement money. And they just sign whatever forms get put in front of them. They send them a big check, not realizing, bingo, 100% of that big check just became taxable to you. So that can push you into a higher tax bracket. It can cause ugly Aunt Irma to penalize you in 2 years if you're on when you go to Medicare. So there are just lots of things. You can mess this up if you don't know how to delicately do the dance. And we've done it just so many hundreds of times that we know how to step and not step on anyone's toes. And that's what's important, is that your retirement dance is elegant. And that's what we try to facilitate at the Wealth Care Corporation.
All righty. Yes, indeed, Barry. We're talking to you Gen Xers on What's on Wealth, the radio show today. And Barry, moving on to talk about what are some of the age-related milestones, the timetable for Gen Xers that they ought to be getting ready for?
Well, of course, 59 and a half is the first, as we just discussed. At age 60, if your spouse or even an ex-spouse has died at age 60, you can start collecting what's called a Social Security survivor benefit. Now, at age 62 is when you're actually eligible for Social Security benefits. But if you collect them at age 62, it's going to result in a lower monthly benefit than if you wait until full retirement. You'll get about a third less in your monthly check. Used to be that the right age to collect was 65, and that's why 65 became a retirement age, is the government kind of trained us to it because that's when Social Security would kick in. But for folks now who are getting ready to retire is age 67. So that's when you get the full amount. And then if you wait until you're 70, they'll add about 8% per year to your Social Security check for every year that you wait between age 67 and age 70. So just beware. If you take it early, you're going to be penalized in the amount of money you get. You also have to know that if you take it early before full retirement age and you are still working, or maybe you just work part-time because you got tired of sitting around the house, you wanted to go do something fun, so you went and got a job driving the tram at Silver Dollar City. That's one of the things I thought would be fun for probably a day at least. So beware that if you take a job before full retirement age and you're drawing Social Security, that if you earn more than $22,320 in that job, then for every dollar over that you earn, they're going to take back 50 cents of the Social Security that they paid you. So just be careful about that. Now, when you turn 65, you're eligible for Medicare. And that's a big thing. So when you become eligible for Medicare, we've got to not only sign up for Medicare, there's a protocol and a way to do that. It's not all that complicated, but you want to be sure you do it correctly. Had a lady in my office in her 70s a few months ago who had failed to properly sign up for Medicare. And as a result, if she wanted it today, she would be penalized. I don't remember, but it was an ungodly amount. Medicare was going to cost her maybe twice as much. So the penalty was pretty stiff for it. So when you're 65, sign up for Medicare. If you need help doing that, call us. We'll help you know how to do that. One of the things you're going to have to do is there are things Medicare doesn't pay for. And how are you going to pay for those? Well, you need a Medicare supplement to pay for those, or a Medicare Advantage plan, and we'll help you sort through and pick out the ones that fit you most appropriately. Then I said at age 67, that's full retirement age, and then at age 70 is the maximum amount that you'll ever get paid on Social Security. So everybody should be taking Social Security by the time they're 70 years old. Those are some of the big ages that come along. And there's one final one that hits you, Ralph. At age 73, if you were born before 1960, you have to start taking required minimum distributions from your 401k and traditional IRA type accounts. But if you're like me, born after 1960, well, we won't have to start taking those distributions until we're 75 years old. So those are all the big dates that relate to ages, Ralph.
Okay, Barry, and thank you for that. And whatever Gen X or whatever time age bracket you're in, get your planning together with Barry Watts at the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry's number as we hit the break here is 417-200-3500 in Springfield. We'll take a break, and Barry and I are back with our main topic of the day right after these messages.
Having trouble planning your retirement? Planning doesn't have to be complicated. Barry Watts can help you simplify it with his Retirement Toolkit. In it, you'll find a copy of his Retirement Income Planning Booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, income, and more. To get your toolkit, text KIT, that's K-I-T, to 417-200-3500. That's KIT, K-I-T, to 417-200-3500.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in What's on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of What's on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through WealthCare Asset Management, LLC.
Are you worried about where your money will go in retirement? No need to worry. Barry Watts is here to help you plan for your retirement future. Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500 to set up a meeting with Barry Watts to see what he can do for you. Again, that's text VISIT to 417-200-3500 today.
Hey, welcome back into more of the Watts on Wealth radio show, and along with J. Barry Watts of the WealthCare Corporation, I'm your radio host, Ralph Hibb. Well, you might remember, if you could see the YouTube video or recall in your brain, Rod Stewart had a song called Ooh La La, and he says in there, I wish I knew what I know now when I was younger. How many times have we all wished for that? And Hannah Miners is a freelance copywriter and a content expert, and she wrote The Things I Would Tell My 20-Year-Old Self, kind of along that same line. And she writes about the 10 things she would tell her 20-year-old self. Now that old Barry is 61 now, Barry, what would you tell yourself when you were 20 if you could sit face to face with that young Barry Watts?
I wish I could go back knowing what I know today. People say, oh, I wouldn't go back. I'd go back in a heartbeat if I could take the wisdom that I've experienced over all these years. But you can't do that. You try to share it with young people and with your kids, and they don't want a lot of it. Hey, I had something funny that happened. Speaking of me being older, I had a new person in the office last week. And somewhere in the middle of the conversation, he looked at me and he said, you're no Joe Biden, but you also aren't any Kamala Harris. And I'm like, what? That's just the weirdest thing.
How did you take that, Barry?
Well, I didn't know. I mean, anybody who knows my political leanings know that I'm no Joe Biden and I'm no Kamala Harris. That's definitely true. But I figured it out. After he left, he was talking about my age. You see, Ralph, I'm gray-headed. Yeah, the beautiful thing about radio is nobody can see you. And I have a face made for radio, they say, but I am on TV. So you might want to dampen your screen or turn it to the wall when you listen to our TV show. But I've got gray hair. I've had gray hair since I was in my 30s. My dad grayed early, so I'm totally gray. Actually, I'm white-headed. And what he was doing is he was looking at me and he was saying, you're old. And the funny part about it was when he said, well, you're no Joe Biden, but you're also no Kamala Harris. Well, actually, Kamala Harris is 59. So I'm only a year and a few months older than Kamala. So anyway, that's just kind of a funny thing that happened. You ask, what would I tell my younger self? Well, first thing I'd say is aim higher. Aim higher. I grew up down in the Missouri Ozarks milking cows and picking rocks, and we had a saying down there, don't get too big for your britches. Don't get too big for your britches. Just calm down and live like your people have always lived. Now, I broke out of that, and I went to the University of Missouri, was the first person who went away to college. That was a big deal in my family, a big step to take. And my brother and I have both broken out of it professionally. We both work in the financial space, and so neither one of us are milking cows anymore, though I still have some at home on the farm that I don't have time to take care of. And so my point is, you really can be President of the United States. Apparently anybody can be. Although these days, I don't know why anybody would want to be. You really can be an astronaut. We've got a young man who graduated. It's my veterinarian's son. Shout out to Dr. Michael Sprague over in Rogersville and his son, Zach. Zach has been out of college about 5 years now, and he was working in the defense sector, and he was learning to fly on the side, and he decided he wanted to be an astronaut. And so Zach has joined the Navy, and he's gone through the officers program, and he's in Pensacola Beach learning to fly. So aim higher. Zach wants to be an astronaut, and maybe he'll get to be the first guy to go to the moon. I think that's important. Second thing I'd say is start sooner. Ralph, I remember living like I had to have permission and living like thinking about all the things I'm going to do later. I'm going to do later. And sometime about 30, I woke up and realized how much of my life was already behind me and that I didn't have to ask permission anymore. I was a big boy, fully grown. And that if I wanted to take a trip, go somewhere, see a thing, do a thing, be something, I needed to start instead of just delaying it and think I would do all those things later. Now, another thing I'd say to myself is, hey, Barry, don't take yourself so seriously. People who know me know that I'm a fairly serious guy. I take the responsibility to support and help people on my shoulders rather weighty and serious. I've always been that way. I like to have fun, but what I would say to my 20-year-old self is, hey, Barry, have more fun. And brush off some of those serious weights that you take on yourself. And then finally, this is probably the easiest one. I'd say, Barry, save 20 cents out of every dollar you make. If you'll save 20% out of everything that you make, by the time you get to be 50 years old, you'll be fine, young man. And certainly at 60, you'll be finer. And at 70, you'll be the finest. And so save 20% out of every dollar you make, and you're going to be okay. That's the advice I'd give to my 20-year-old self if I could go backwards.
Me too, especially that pay yourself first. My mother-in-law used to say, pay yourself first and go from there. You know, while you were talking, Barry, I was thinking when you were born, Joe Biden was 20. He was his 20-year-old self. You guys are exactly 2 decades apart. I don't know what he would tell himself when he was 20, but when you're 20, whether you know it or not, you're laying that groundwork for your financial future. And we talk about the stages of retirement for this part of the show. We want to talk about the 5 financial stages of life, and pretty good to examine each of these. We're going to try to get through all 5, Barry. Your clients probably have kids or grandkids in the first stage. How do we pay forward, at least on that information, to the next generation to help them find their own financial footing, like when they're 20?
I'm thinking, Ralph, of a family that we work with. We have multiple generations of this family. Mom and dad are here, and they have sent their daughters and the sons-in-law to become our clients. And it's really a cool family because mom and dad are rock-rib conservative people. They've done a good job of saving and investing, and it's translated to the kids. The kids come in their 20s, and they've already got, one of them was here a month or so ago, and she's like 29, already got her house paid for. And that's fabulous. And now they've got the first baby and they're working on the second baby and they're saving money and they got 529 plans to educate the kids. They're just doing a fabulous job. So I wish I could call their names out. I'm not going to do that for their own privacy, but I'd like to salute them out loud. Because they're just fabulous folks and they're doing such a good job with their kids and now their grandkids. And most of my clients are concerned about their kids. They say, oh, my when we teach a class, they'll say, oh, my kids need to be in this class. They'll look at me and they say, why aren't you teaching this class to my kids? And I'm like, dude, do you think I have a gun and go out on the streets and round people up and make them come to class? You volunteered to be here. Why are you asking me that question? And of course, they're just expressing their angst, wishing that this information is something they had learned years earlier. But the thing is, we want our kids to stand on their own. And then if they happen to get an inheritance, well, then good for them. So what I think you want to teach them is build up your savings and set aside an emergency fund and save until you get 20% in your emergency fund. Do teach them to save 20% of their income every year. I misspoke, by the way. Go figure. I'm 61. I get a pass on that, don't I? What I said is save 20% in your emergency fund. No, save 20% of your income. And the first place to start putting it is save it until you have 6 months worth of living expenses in your emergency fund. There we go. I got it said correctly. Be sure and get basic life insurance if you have any obligations. Now, if you're just 2 of you newly married and we don't have any kids and we haven't bought a house, so we don't have any debt, you probably don't need life insurance. But as soon as you have a child on the way, as soon as you have a mortgage, you need to get basic life insurance. That'll be term insurance most likely, although there's a place for permanent insurance as well. You have to have health insurance. By all means, you must have health insurance. And, if you say, well, I can't afford it, go out on the exchange. Obamacare can be free depending on what your income is. Also, I'd like to see you have disability insurance because that means what happens if you get sick and can't work or you get hurt and can't work? You're still going to have expenses. And if you don't have some way to get income to pay for those, that's going to be a problem. Here's a big one. Live within your means. Ralph, while I was in the shower this morning, I heard a radio ad saying, hey, if you've got bad credit and times have been rough for you and you need money, just call us. We'll loan you $5,000 within 2 hours for whatever you need to spend on it to pay on some bills or go on vacation. If you're in such bad shape that you need to borrow $5,000 on the radio, you probably shouldn't spend it going on vacation. And then here's the other thing that people don't know, Ralph. A dollar saved when you're 20 or 25 or 30, when you get to be 65, it is worth so much more than a dollar saved when you're 50 because it has all of those extra years to compound, to earn interest on the interest and interest on the interest on the interest. So the power of compounding is huge. And most people don't understand how it works. And frankly, I didn't understand how it works and worked for many years. And I wish I'd understood it more when I was younger. That's something they ought to teach in high school.
So for stage 2, Barry, then we get into the family and the career building years. Barry, tell us about the big financial steps in stage 2 that are happening right now in our financial lives.
Well, it's the settling down and adulting stage. My daughters are there right now. My oldest daughter just bought her first home less than a year ago. So when you get ready to buy a house, here's what I'd say. Buy one that you can afford. You know, it seems kids these days, I mean, my children were raised in an extremely nice house, and they've bought a house that's nothing like the one that Kelly and I live in, but it's nice. My point is, you don't have to have a $500,000 house to start. There are some $200,000 starter homes that don't have marble countertops, and they'll be just fine to begin with. So start at something that you can afford. Educate yourself. Come to the class I teach at Missouri State University. Go to the YouTube and watch What's on Wealth on YouTube, and be able to make more informed financial decisions. In fact, call our office and we'll send you a copy of my new book, What's on Wealth. The book's named What's on Wealth. The show's named What's on Wealth. The YouTube channel's What's on Wealth. We'll send you a copy of my book that educates you on all of these things. Be sure that you're building up your emergency reserves, that 6 months worth of living expenses in your financial account. And then be sure that you get your insurance coverage right and understand how it works. Those are some critical things to do at that second stage in life, Ralph. And I got to say this to you. My daughter, Madison, who lives in St. Peters, Missouri, with my beloved son-in-law, Zach, she every once in a while she'll call with a question. You know, something's broke on the new house. Something isn't right. Or, oh, here comes a big bill. Well, they had a tree in their backyard. A big tree that died. And they're like, hey, Dad, can you cut this tree down? Well, I looked it all over. Yep, I can cut her down. But the way this tree leans, I think it might crash on your shed. Now, I think I can make it not happen, but I'm not 100% sure. And I don't have one of those big trucks with a bucket that I can go up to the top and cut it down a piece at a time. You know, I'm going to lay the whole tree down in the backyard. And if it blows the wrong direction and knocks into your shed, well, that's tough luck. And so they're all upset about this. And their first bid to take this tree down, now bear in mind, this is in suburban St. Louis, was like $3,200 to cut a tree. And so I remember when Madison called to tell me about that, she said, you know, adulting isn't fun. And I would agree, but I would say adulting's more fun. It's more fun if you've got your financial act together.
That's right. So get it together, folks, and Barry's number as we hit the break here. We're halfway through our terrific show with Barry. It's 417-200-3500. Everything is What's on Wealth, the book and the radio and the TV show. The one thing that's not is the website. That is wattswealth.com, wattswealth.com, and do some research on the website with Barry. Barry, time to take our break, and we will discuss the remaining half of the 5 financial stages of life when What's on Wealth, the radio show, continues right after this.
Taxes. Can't live with them, can't live without them. But if you're looking for someone to help you pay as little taxes in retirement as possible, just give Barry Watts a call at the Wealth Care Corporation at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500 to see what Barry Watts can do for you. Having trouble planning your retirement? Planning doesn't have to be complicated. Barry Watts can help you simplify it with his Retirement Toolkit. In it, you'll find a copy of his Retirement Income Planning Booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, income, and more. To get your toolkit, text KIT, that's K-I-T, to 417-200-3500. That's KIT, K-I-T, to 417-200-3500.
Welcome back in. Barry and I are delighted you're with us. This is Ralph Hipp with Barry Watts on the Watts on Wealth radio show for this Sunday. Not a surprise, what's right for your money now probably won't be the case in 10 or 20 years. Barry and I are going through the 5 main stages to your financial life, and stage 3, Barry, is a very important one. We call that pre-retirement. Pre-retirement's an exciting time because you probably do have your house paid off, the mortgage is done, the kids are off the payroll, and you're in your peak earning years with the raises you've gotten at work. This is also the time we just cannot afford to mess it up and ruin it by making the wrong financial moves in pre-retirement.
Well, Ralph, I like to say when you've won the game, don't dribble the ball off of your toe. Do you remember when
Yes.
when we were kids playing basketball? I played on the basketball team down at Galena. The competition wasn't terribly stiff, but it was there in Stone County in the Southwest Central League at that time. And my coaches were Ron Hogue, shout out to Ron Hogue, retired from Shelter Insurance, and John Gilly from Big Flat, Arkansas was one of my coaches. I think John lives somewhere down around Kimberling City now. But those were my basketball coaches. And one of the things I remember they always had us do is when we were ahead of the game, they would say, spread it out. And we would go to all four corners of the court and we'd just pass the ball back and forth between the four corners. We would never dribble the ball because if you dribble it, they can reach in and swipe it. We would never shoot the ball because if you shoot the ball, you may not score and they may get the rebound and go back and score and catch up with us. So we wanted to burn the clock. And the way we burned the clock was by a spread offense, a four-corner offense. So here's the deal. If you're ready to retire, hopefully you've been successful in planning for that and you are ready to retire. The only way you can know is if we do a retirement income plan for you, put you through the 6 steps to retirement confidence. Well, then what you want to do is don't lose the game at this point. And when I say don't lose the game, it means don't make a dumb financial decision. In fact, most people are not going to because for most people, their mortgage is paid off. But what they need to be thinking about is how to reduce their taxes in retirement. They need to be thinking about how to reduce their Medicare penalty in retirement. And there may be a penalty if they don't plan their taxes properly. They need to be looking at their lifestyle. How much money is it going to take to live in retirement? And are you going to be able to keep up with the rising cost of living as inflation goes up each year? You got to think about healthcare. How are we going to pay for our long-term care? And then you're going to want to upgrade your home somewhere. You know, if you live 40 years in retirement, at some point, mama's going to want new countertops and need new carpets. That's just going to happen. And we've been in our house 20 years and doggone, the garage door opener went out. And, you know, when one of them went out, we just replaced all 3 of them. And that was an expensive gesture. So you got to think about upgrading your home. All these things come to you as you're preparing to retire and you want to be prepared for that. I think a good place to start is by going through the 6 steps to retirement confidence, where the first step is retirement income to age 100, making sure that you're on the path to have all the income that you will need to retire and stay retired for the rest of your life.
And Barry, when you were playing basketball, of course, you had that 4-corner offense, which now we have the shot clock. And I was thinking, you know, it's good to have a shot clock on our financial planning. Don't wait forever and set a time frame and get that done before the buzzer goes off, right? When is a good time for a financial checkup, the first one or second or third one, so we can make sure in stage 3 here, we're on the right track on retirement and not dribbling the ball off of our toe?
All right, Ralph, hats off to you, buddy. That's a great segue. That's a great segue. I'd forgotten the shot clock existed because I didn't play with a shot clock. And basketball was boring then because we just passed it from corner to corner for the last 4 minutes. Well, you can do that now with the shot clock.
Can financial planning be exciting?
Well, it's exciting when you win. And it's exciting when you can look at the scoreboard and know you're ahead and know that you're going to win if you don't do anything stupid. And we can tell you how not to do anything stupid. In fact, you remember, Ralph, about less than 2 weeks ago, it'll be 2 weeks ago tomorrow, that we had that really difficult day in the stock market. It lost about 4% one day. And the news was saying the sky is falling and the end is near. Now, that wasn't true, but that's what the news was saying, and it stirred everyone. It stirred me, and I knew better. So when you can go through something like that and know you're not affected because you've got protected principal built into your retirement income plan, that gives you confidence, and that's pretty exciting. So yes, it can be exciting to do retirement planning and make sure that you get yourself in the right position so days like 2 weeks ago, Monday, don't have any effect on you.
One really good thing, I think, Barry, that came out of August the 5th is we were thinking about our financial and retirement accounts. It wasn't on the back burner or in the back folder in the drawer. That 1,000-point drop in the Dow got us thinking about we need to do something about this, and we need to do it now. So today's the right time for the right track on retirement planning?
Absolutely, Ralph. Call us today, and we will take care of you. We'll get you in with one of our advisors. We have so many people calling anymore that I can't take all of the appointments, but I try to take as many as possible. But we've got some really skilled, well-trained advisors who I have trained in our process and taught them to think the way we think about these things, who can sit down with you and work you through these thoughts to help be sure that you are confident in retirement and that you're going to have retirement income all the way to age 100. So call us today and we'll make that happen for you.
That number is 417-200-3500. You can even text visit today this Sunday, 200-3500, all around the 417 area code. Well, Barry, what can you tell us about, I think we're slipping into stage 4 here, making that transition from working to retiring. Is there a chapter in the book on that or a YouTube video we can watch?
Well,
and you can talk about that?
You've snuck that. I don't know if you've watched the YouTube video or not. Ralph, I've got a YouTube video called What I Learned About Retiring by Falling Off the Boat Dock. What I learned about retirement by falling off the boat dock. I promise, if you'll go to YouTube and look up What's on Wealth and then look for the video that said what I learned about retirement by falling off the boat dock, that you will laugh and you'll get a good story and you'll get the point. The point is simply this. I was fishing on Pomme de Terre with my dad and mom, and it was time to go home. So Dad is going to motor the boat up close to the dock so I can get off and go get the truck and back the trailer down into the water so he can load the boat. And when I stepped off the boat onto the boat dock, what I didn't know is the flotation on the dock was really, really, really poor. And so it was riding high in the water when nobody was on it. But when I stepped my full weight off of the boat onto the dock plunged downward in such a way that it was very disorienting and would allow me to fall over. I've got one foot on the dock going down. I've got my other foot still stuck up on the boat, and I'm in the middle. What am I going to do? At the last second, I decided to make a dive back for the boat. And as I did, wow, I fell into the water, and my parents laughed uproariously at me. This was just a couple of years ago. Of course, somebody had their phone shooting the video. Well, what's worse is my phone was in my pocket. Oh, and there I am in the water. But I'm proud to tell you that my phone was not affected. It worked fine. I did not spill my Diet Coke. I actually set it, as I was going down, I set my Diet Coke up on the water. And my expensive sunglasses that my sister-in-law gave me, I actually lost them as I went into the water, but grabbed them as they were sinking. I grabbed them and put them back up on the dock. So nothing bad happened except I got wet. And I was thinking about that experience, and it occurred to me that that transition from the boat to the dock is exactly what retirement is like. The boat is kind of steady. We know sort of what it feels like as it moves through the water. What we don't know is when we step off the boat onto the retirement dock, is it going to be solid like standing on ground? Is it going to be a little squishy? Is it going to float on the waves? Is it going to be like the one I stepped on where it just plunges downward? Because that's what happened 2 weeks ago on Monday when the Dow lost 1,000 points. How do you do that with any sense of confidence? And so we've got some principles, some things we learned about how to accomplish that. And I have incorporated those into our process, these 6 steps to retirement confidence. So when you step off the boat onto the dock, you can do so confident that there will be solid ground under your feet for you to begin your retirement journey on.
Let's get into 4 and 5, the final 2 stages of our financial life, Barry, and it happens in retirement. How do you help us create a spending strategy for Ozarkers so they can enjoy these early years of retirement without blowing through their savings too quickly?
Well, it's hard for me to believe, Ralph, that people have this much trouble with this first thing, but I'm telling you, it is a pain for most folks. They just can't answer this question. And the question is simply this: how much money do you need deposited into your bank account every month in order for you to be retired? We call it your sitting on the porch number. If you wanted to retire and just go home and sit on the porch, I know you want a more active lifestyle. That's okay. But if all you were going to do was just go sit on the porch, how much has to be deposited into your accounts each month? Because until you know that, which is essentially how your spending is going to go, there's no way we can know whether or not you're going to have enough money to live throughout retirement. And so once you know you're sitting on the porch number, then we say, well, how much are you going to have from Social Security? How much are you going to have from pensions? And how close do those 2 things come to meeting your sitting on the porch number? And whatever they lack, well, that's money that has to come out of your investments. So now let's go to the investments. If we start drawing that money out of the investments every month, how long will your investments last? Will they last until you're 100 years old? And so that's the way we help people think about that particular topic of preparing for retirement. It starts with your sitting on the porch number. How much money do you need each month deposited into your accounts in retirement?
So in stage 4, you're probably wanting to do your big bucket list items and getting your money, getting your ducks in a row for getting ready for stage 5. And in stage 4, or is it stage 5 when we're getting near the end? Barry, when's the best time to start thinking about our estate plan and legacy goals? In stage 5, or we need to do a little bit earlier?
Ralph, I love your questions, but they always take me off track because you ask a question, I'm going to give you a totally different answer. Because you said it's time to get your ducks in a row. You know, I just got back from Europe. We were over in Rome and Paris.
That's right, yeah.
And when we got home, we literally walked in the house and I heard Kelly shriek. And the reason she shrieked is she looked out the back window and she saw her swimming pool, and our ducks from the farm that are supposed to be in the pond had found her swimming pool.
Yeah, and
so we've got 15 ducks swimming in our pool, and that's not all they were doing, if you know what I mean. And so when you said ducks in a row, I just couldn't help but remember that story. And I think those ducks probably need to have an estate plan because their legacy right now is rather negative, and I don't know how much life they're going to have left if we don't get this problem solved. So your question was, when should we start planning our estate plan and our legacy goals? And the answer is now. It's never too early. I wrote my first will when I was in my 20s. We can help people get started on this process, introduce them to the attorneys that they may need to make it happen, help them understand how the process works, what they may need, what they might not need. So start now, however old you are. Start now. It's never too early to start on that project.
So, folks, as we move on to our next thing here on the show, Barry, thanks for all that great information and all your answers. And I'm sorry to hear about the ducks not in a row. But anyway, remember the 5 financial stages of life we just talked about and Barry's 6 steps to retirement confidence. You can fuse those together and make that work for you. What does your retirement look like? What do you want it to look like in the Ozarks? A great part of the country, great place to retire. Make sure it's all the way you want it to be by calling Barry, 417-200-3500, 200-3500 at the WealthCare Corporation. Barry, football season is coming up. We're ready for quarter number 4 of our show. You ready? We'll take a break and be back in a moment. You ready for that?
Let's make it happen.
All righty. We will do a quiz with Barry and see if you know the answers while you're driving or listening to us. As Watts on Wealth, the radio show rolls on, back to your house or car right after this.
Having trouble planning your retirement? Planning doesn't have to be complicated. Barry Watts can help you simplify it with his retirement toolkit. In it, you'll find a copy of his retirement income planning booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, income, and more. To get your toolkit, text KIT, that's K-I-T, to 417-200-3500. That's KIT, K-I-T, to 417-200-3500.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the WealthCare Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through WealthCare Asset Management, LLC.
Are you worried about where your money will go in retirement? No need to worry. Barry Watts is here to help you plan for your retirement future. Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500 to set up a meeting with Barry Watts to see what he can do for you. Again, that's text VISIT to 417-200-3500 today.
Well, time now on the show to take some time and put Barry to the test with a round of retirement trivia, and our topic is that big bad boy, inflation. Barry, you might have lived through a lot of these time periods, or I know you'd know with some solid research in your inflation blue book you might have. Here's our first question, if you are ready, sir.
I'm ready. Let's hear them.
All right. Question number 1, Barry. What was the average cost for a gallon of gas in 1960? And I'll give you some choices here. Was it A, a quarter, B, 60 cents, C, $1, or D, a dime? Cost of a gallon of gas in 1960.
Well, Ralph, I'd like to point out that I wasn't here in 1960, but you were. So, I was born in 63. I remember, I think 25-cent gas when I was a kid. So I would say that in 1960, probably, you could probably buy gas for a dime a gallon. 10 cents a gallon is my answer. Final answer.
Oh, yeah, you did final answer like who wants to be a millionaire? Would you like to be a millionaire, folks? That's another topic we'll talk about. But actually, it's A, Barry, 25 cents. And by 2000, the average cost for a gallon of gas was $1.26, $1 more. And by 2018, it was almost $3. So answer A, 25 cents. And I'll also shoot a story your way, Barry. Back in the 60s, my aunt used to drive to the gas station we had in our little hometown of 600 people. And good old Ed would come out of the office at the gas station and he'd wash her windshield and check her oil and fill up the gas at $23.9 a gallon. But we had a person come out and do that. Do you remember any of those days they'd actually service your car for you while you were there? They don't do that at the gas station now.
Ralph, so little you know about me to ask a question like that. So I grew up with my grandfather, Jake Watts and Geraldine, running a country store at the end of the Y Bridge in Galena. Okay. So if you cross the bridge heading into Galena, right there at the end of the bridge was Watts Grocery. And there at Watts Grocery were a set of gas pumps. So Granddad would gas your car up. There was a rack outside where you could put your car up on it and change your oil for you and do all those kinds of things. So my family was in that business, and my dad and mom actually, Dad started in the propane business. He owned a company then called Stone County Propane, was the first propane dealer in that part of the world. In fact, he sold the Hershans their first propane to heat the hot dogs at Marvel Cave Park before Silver Dollar City existed. He would wheel a bottle of propane in, and Pete Hershon would reach in his pocket and get a few dollars and pay him for that bottle of propane. I was flying recently, by the way, and I was sitting up in first class, which is where my wide butt needs to sit these days now that I'm 61. And a couple of rows ahead of me was Mr. Hershon, a billionaire. And I just thought it was interesting how the billionaires and the poor people like me, I know I'm not one of them, but I'm there's a difference in his money and mine. I thought it was interesting how well we all have to fly the same airplanes. And I thought if I was him, I'd have a private airplane, I think. But Pete doesn't do it that way. So my dad and mom went up to Crane, just north of Galena, and they took their propane business, and they also opened a self-service station. It was one of the first self-service stations in this part of the world where you could just pump your own gas. And so then I went to school my first 3 years, first, second, and third grade in Crane. I would ride in at a little after 6 o'clock every morning with my dad. He would be there to put me on the bus when Bob Metcalf came driving my bus by, and I'd get on Bob's bus. God rest his soul. What a fine, fine gentleman. And Bob would take me to school, and then I would go back home, which was back to the service station. And then Mom was there working, and she would make me stay there till 5, and then she would take me home. So the service station business is kind of in my blood. I kind of understand how all that stuff works.
Barry, the average cost of college tuition in the U.S. for undergrads has blanked over the last 58 years. That's not a bad word I'm putting in there. This is from the National Center for Education Statistics. So the cost of college tuition, has it A, doubled? It's B, quadrupled? C, stayed about the same? Or D, has it tripled?
Well, we know it's not stayed the same.
No.
And I don't think doubled is enough. So I'm going with B. I think it's quadrupled. It costs 4 times as much to go to college today as it did 60 years ago.
I'm going to say you're right. Actually, my answer is D, that it's tripled, but I'm sure it's quadrupled. So either one of those were in the ballpark. But it rose from about $4,300 in 1963 to $13,007 in 2020. That's all accounting for inflation. So we'll give you credit for that one, that it's quadrupled, but they say it's actually tripled. Yeah, there you go. Hey, 50 years ago, so you were 11. Yeah, that's 1963. We're going to 1974 when you were 11. President Ford had just taken over, and he declared inflation as public enemy number one. What was our inflation rate that year, Barry, that got him all riled up? Is it A, 3%, which is about what we have now, B, 12%, C, just 1%, or D, 20% inflation? What do you think on that one?
Well, I happen to know that Richard Nixon resigned the presidency in about 50 years and 10 days ago. is when he
early
resigned.
August. Yeah,
And
early
by the
August,
way, you may or may not know, he was flying over Missouri when his presidency actually ended. Because he resigned at 12 noon. He went and got on the plane. He flew west, and he was over Jefferson City, actually, when 12 noon happened. And the call sign on his airplane went from Air Force One to I don't know what. But that's when the call sign happened. So that's a little Missouri history and trivia for you.
That's interesting, yeah.
Inflation, public enemy number one. How much was inflation then? I remember those days, wage and price controls, the Arab oil embargo. He took us off of the gold exchange, took us off the gold basis for our dollar. We didn't have the gold standard. There it is. And so the dollar was loosed from all that. I'm going to say that probably the inflation rate then was about 12%.
That is right. Yes, 12%, which would get us in a real panic right now. But we're about 3.5% inflation these days. But yeah, and President Ford, when he took over, like August the 9th was the anniversary, 50 years since the start of the Ford presidency. And then he had the win buttons, Barry. Did your folks ever have a win button, whip inflation now?
No, I don't. I remember that phrase, whip inflation now, but win to me is an Arkansas thing because, you know, the governor of Arkansas, or the lieutenant governor of Arkansas was Winthrop Rockefeller. Winrock Farms. He had a big farm down around Morrilton.
Yeah.
So I started part of my early career right outside of Arkansas in a little community called Benton. And a lot of my friends were active in Republican politics in Arkansas in that day when it wasn't popular to be a Republican. Bill Clinton had just been elected president. He had just moved from Little Rock to Washington, D.C. And shortly after that, then Winthrop Rockefeller became the lieutenant governor of Arkansas. And so I remember that. Win, to me, always relates back to Winthrop Rockefeller rather than to whip inflation now. But either one of those is a good answer.
Yeah. I guess if we wore win buttons in Springfield and down into Arkansas, they would think of Win Rockefeller. And Nelson Rockefeller was his brother, right?
Yeah, I think so. But Nelson
Lawrence
was the governor of New York.
Yes. So
and then Nelson became vice president to Ford.
He did. He was chosen to be vice president by Ford, to take his place. Yeah. And of course, with everything going on now, history repeats itself, and we've got a nominee and choosing a vice president. And here we go into the election. So we'll, from 1974, we'll get to the 2024 and see how that all turns out. I got one more question for you, Barry, and you should hoard cash to ensure that inflation cannot harm it. Is that true or false?
Well, I don't think that's a very good idea. The answer is that's absolutely false. Here's why. If you're hoarding your money, meaning you've got it under a mattress or in your sock drawer or buried under the bird bath like my grandparents did, that money can't grow at all for you. And every year, the buying power of that money that you've got in your sock drawer reduces by 3%. So hoarding cash is a bad idea. Now, I think everybody ought to have some cash, but you ought to have your cash invested in an account where it grows. Right now, I've got cash earning 5% in a money market account. I think that's great. You may or may not have access to an account like that, but I happen to have access to an account that does that. And so I'm grateful to have that. And I've got, a little cash that I keep around elsewhere because you never know what emergency is going to come up on the weekend. So it's okay to have some money stuck aside somewhere, a few $100s that you keep in hand for some kind of an emergency. But don't hoard it because you need to have that cash working for you as hard as you worked for it.
So remember those words, folks. Text book or text visit, that number 417, all around the Ozarks, 200-3500. As Barry, we wrap up another Watts on Wealth. And Barry, just a final thought. I know we're excited to be back on KY3 now that the Olympics are over. And you'll really see, in my opinion, you'll see how fantastic Barry looks at 61.
Well, it is what it is. So don't let it break your TV.
That's right. No, it won't. And it won't break your radio either. And we hope not to break your bank. So that's it for Watts on Wealth for this weekend. For Barry Watts and his whole crew there at the Wealthcare Corporation, this is Ralph Hipp, and hope you'll join us again next Sunday right here.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.